This program is financially supported by the fundings from the European Commission.
You are listening to the EBU Access Cast, the first official podcast from European Blind Union about assistive technology for blind and partially sighted people. And here are the hosts.
And we are back after the summer holidays. In 2 months of silence, we are back. And I have with me Jakub Rosin from Estonia. Hello, Jakub.
Hello.
And Bart Simons. Are you Simons or Simons?
Let's keep it like Bart Simons. I'm from Belgium. Hello.
Okay, so Bart Simons from Belgium. Hi guys, how was your summer?
It was hot, really.
Yeah, the same. I was in Croatia for almost 4 weeks, and oh my god, it was really hot this year.
I know that the International Computer Camp was this year in Croatia, and
it was, but they were on the coast. They were lucky, they could take a swim when
yes.
They had a time, and they were in Zadar, which is really nice city. So yeah, I think they had a really good time over there. So we are back, and we, as you could hear at the beginning, we have our new intro.
Yes.
Thanks to Jakub. And we have some news for you. And today we are going to talk about also some changes relating to accessibility and web directive, because some new things which are very interesting and are coming up in the next few days for the European Union, but we are going to cover it in a few minutes. But before we go on, first of all, there were some announcements from Apple last week regarding the new stuff, because Apple had their yearly event, and new version of iOS is released, and there are some accessibility changes. That right, Jakub?
Well, there is no actually there are no big accessibility changes, but one thing I wanted to mention with iOS 12, which indeed is out now, so go and update your devices, is that since Apple improved Photos app a lot, which now can recognize a lot of more of the objects, and it can tell you, well, the phone knows or tries to know what's on the picture, and then you can search for objects, and then it would show you the picture with those objects you searched. This is what they tell mainstream users. What it means to us voiceover users, it basically means that now when you do find a picture and you do 3-finger one tap on the screen, it will attempt to describe it to you with a few words. So basically, its image descriptions have become slightly more better, but still, I think like some other image recognition softwares like Seeing AI or Envision they're doing it better.
An advantage of Apple is that they do it in your language, in the iPhone's language, whereas the other apps, I think, are limited to English.
Yes, you're right, actually. And another advantage is that Apple does it on your device, while other apps need internet connection. They need to upload the image to their servers and do it there.
It's faster, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, there are no big new features in accessibility ways, but they more are concentrating probably on making all the new features in iOS 12, in general new features, to work. So there's like screen time, which tells you how much you used your device and makes activity logs about that, which is interesting. And there is notification grouping and all that happiness. So yeah, lots of new features in iOS, not 12. Yeah, they are mostly all of them are actually accessible, so go check it out.
Well, that's great. Since you mentioned the Envision app, it became accessible to the Android users as well for now, like a few months.
Oh, good.
I started playing with it like for last month, and I have to say that I'm really impressed with its features, especially with the direct reading from the devices. It saved me for a few times where the other apps before couldn't do it, and I was really, really surprised. I can tell you, for example, the one example where a friend of mine, I saw on Twitter a post where a person used electronic cigarette with the digital display, and basically those kind of displays are really, really small, and those displays have a bunch of data displayed, like which temperature they use and stuff like that. And if you're blind, it's kind of tricky to use such devices, but the person was able to read the contents from the display from the device with the Envision, and it was like, yeah, man, it's really
Nice.
cool.
There is one place where it doesn't work. I mean, I agree, this is an amazing way and it works very well, but there's one place where it doesn't work. I try to know the time of the remaining time on my washing machine's screen. And it displays it, obviously, and it can actually read, but it also reads all the things written around the screen.
labels,
so basically,
the labels
yeah.
on
Exactly, the signs which are on the front panel. So I get lots of useless information, and maybe I get the time. So there, it kind of I mean, the system itself doesn't do anything wrong. It reads everything, but it just reads me the wrong things.
You would have to cover all the rest, but it's hard to do.
Yeah, it's very hard to do because my machine has touchscreen as well, and yeah, it's gonna do bad things.
Then you will just be patient till it's done.
Okay, so these are the news from Apple. And since we are talking about the accessibility, there are news from NVDA team as well. They are preparing the 2018.3 release, and the last version is RC3, which is basically, that means that it's the last release candidate before it goes out public. So if there are no more bugs and stuff, it should be out any day. And from the news about the NVDA, it says Windows 10 emoji input. So now this is accessible. NVDA will report grammar errors when appropriately exposed by web pages in Google Chrome. That was not accessible before. Content marked as being either inserted or deleted in web pages is now reported in Google Chrome. There are changes for the Braille displays and the improvements, which is really good.
Do we know how they will announce the strike-through text or inserted text? Will it be with a different pitch, or will they really say word like start of enter text?
I think it speaks. It speaks. It doesn't. It doesn't use different pitch. It tells you that.
Okay. There are many changes. It's sometimes hard to concentrate on the text if it's always interrupted by enter text, deleted text, end of deleted text.
Yep.
Yeah.
Be interesting to see how
maybe somebody will do some change in some add-ons, because there are a bunch of add-ons for NVDA.
Or could be with a sound or something.
Yeah.
Indicating the beginning and the end, or.
It's possible. Maybe it would be possible to add this feature through the profiles, because NVIDIA now also supports different profiles. So maybe that could be done that way.
But it's an important one, because sometimes on websites, on web shops, you can see that there are two prices, and one of them is like strike through to indicate that they have now a new lower price. And yeah, if you don't know that the first numbers are strike through, you can't be. Sometimes you wonder what is now the real price.
Which is the right price? Yeah. What Mac does here is when it's kind of good and bad. It does use sound. So when you're reading a text, and for example there is like 3 words in bold, it will make a little beep. Well, you can make it. You can actually configure it differently, but basically with the sound option, it makes a little beep before those 3 words. Then it says the 3 words, and then it makes another beep to let you know that it's now continuing with normal text. The trouble is that there is only one beep, so it does the same beep both for like bold, for underline, for italic, for whatever strike through. So that's the problem. But I kind of prefer the sound way because, as you said, it doesn't interrupt the sentences it's talking about and with its own, because it gets very, very confusing if it's
sure,
the stuff.
Sure. Okay. Besides those changes for the web browsers, there is one more thing which is kind of important, and it says custom role via ARIA. Role description attribute are now supported in all browsers, which is great. So,
okay, what does it mean actually?
So we have area roles to describe what web content or what a component on a website might be, but they are not always detailed enough. So the role description would help you to tell one apart from the other.
So you might have like 2 menus, but one would be main menu, and the second one would be like not so many menu.
No, that's with an area label, so it's even more complicated.
Oh wow!
It's even
Okay.
more rare. So I'm not sure if we should go into these technical details. It's really a very advanced area role.
Okay.
So
basically, you know that things on the web got better with this new update.
Well, it's the same that there is like we will talk later about the web content accessibility guidelines, but the World Wide Web Consortium is also making other standards, like in this case, ARIA standard, accessible rich internet applications. It's also a long document from the World Wide Web Consortium. And it got some new roles and new attributes. And of course, the screen readers have to follow and do something with these new
changes,
syntaxes for web developers, so that we can benefit from it. So maybe we can summarize that NVDA keeps up to date with developments in the accessible rich internet applications specification.
Yay! Now you can put the jingle of applause. Yay! No, you explained it good, Bart. Thank you. The other thing, what I found really nice in this RC3, and which will be in 2018.3, is automatic detection of the braille displays in the background, which means that basically once you plug the braille display, if the NVDA supports it in the lists of drivers, or if it's possible to connect it with the universal USB protocol, then it will be automatically detected. You don't have to do anything through the configurations, which is good. It's just plug and play.
Oh, you mean that usually when I got a new display, I had to go to Braille settings and select it from there, and oh, okay. So now it knows it by itself. Okay, that's great.
Right. Yeah.
Excellent. That's good. No outdated drivers anymore. Wow.
It's simplified, so that's for the end customers, and that's good. I know that they also worked on the improvements for the one-core voices. These are the new voices from Microsoft used in Windows 10. And basically, I don't know if you noticed that now, if you are installing the NVDA for the first time on the Windows 10 machine, it will automatically use the Windows Core voices. So it will no longer use eSpeak, which sounds like a robot, which is a huge improvement for the general understanding of the speech, which is good.
Given that you have the right language installed on your Windows.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Correct.
wonder what it would use with what would it do?
I think it would switch. I mean, if
Like
it doesn't find your language,
my Windows maybe is in Estonian and there's no Estonian Windows voice.
Oh, okay. So maybe it would use the English one, probably.
Probably would default to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Suspect
Hopefully not. Hopefully it would default to eSpeak Estonian, because if it will read your Estonian installation wizard with the English voice, well,
Yeah, it would be
That
funny.
would be
But
bad.
is there
our listeners might be able to understand.
is there
that
eSpeak in Estonian?
What? Yeah, there
there
is an
is-
Estonian eSpeak. Yes.
Okay.
So hopefully we'll do that.
there is an Estonian robot.
There
Yes.
is indeed.
Estonian R2D2.
It's like it's fun because like Estonia has created a text-to-speech engine. Well, not Estonia, by the whole nation, but there has been an institution who has been doing it for past like 10 years. And every time somebody asks, it's gonna be ready soon, and it still kind of isn't properly ready considering the level where others are. And then one day, just randomly, Google made available a Estonian TTS, which isn't perfect, but it's way better than what they have achieved in 10 years. So it's down to big companies, whatever you do. If they want, you'll have it, but if they won't, you won't have it.
Yeah. We had the same thing for Croatian language, and we had a situation where we used to have like a few TTS engines which were like commercial, and they costed a lot of money, and some of them worked okay, some of them were quite bad, and basically nobody had a clue that Microsoft was developing a set of new voices, and one of those was Croatian, which came out last year with the last year's fall version of Windows 10. And I remember when I installed it, and it's a mobile voice, so it's really small. It's like 4 megs in size when you install it. But it sounds way better than anything. In my opinion, it sounds way better than anything what we've had. It doesn't have some funny accents. Because what we had in Croatia was that we really had the issue with the vocalizer voice that came out like 2 years ago, and there was like lots of talk and like, yeah, we have a new voice from vocalizer, it should be great and stuff like that. My God, it's terrible, because eventually what happened with that voice was that, you know, if you don't have people who are language experts, you can code the thing, but if this is not properly coded, and then it speaks by the funny rules, and you know, if you have a coder in India who just does the coding, but at the end product is not properly beta tested, then you have really a disaster, and that's really what happened with the Croatian vocalizer. And then this voice came from Microsoft like last year, and it was like, man, this is really cool, and it worked great. Unlike, I mean, as long as you have Windows 10 machine, it doesn't lag. It's very responsive. I use it now on the daily basis when I need to read something in Croatian. It's really great. So,
Really cool.
Yeah.
That's great.
Okay, so that's kind of short recap about the news for the new NVDA release. You will find all the details in our show notes. But now I'd like to move to the next important topic, which is going to become the reality on the 23rd of September of 2018, and that's the European Web Directive. And basically we have the article in our show notes, which talks about WCAG 2.1 and its adoption in Europe, and what are the correlation to the uh, web directive. And I'm not going to talk about the web directive myself because I know what is it, but I'm going to give the word to Bart because the Bart was the expert in while the directives while the directive was in its development stages. So Bart, go ahead.
Okay, so what's new since last episode? Last episode we explained that the World Wide Web Consortium published 2.1 version of its main standard, accessibility standard, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, an update from 2.0 to 2.1, which what is a little bit strange maybe is that web content in its name, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, it's meant to be broader than websites. It's also including digital documents, newsletters, electronic newsletters, and mobile applications. Now, this update to 2.1 is important mainly for having more details about mobile app accessibility. Because when the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines were written was 2008. That was just before the launch of all the touchscreen devices. So although the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines wanted to be technology neutral and include all these different digital content, more than web content, there were quite some gaps. And this was also when the directive was negotiated. EBU stressed a lot, was one of the key points for EBU was that it has to include not only websites, but also mobile apps. And this has been a long discussion. Yes, but we want to include mobile apps, but is there a standard good enough to describe what an accessible mobile application is and how to get to an accessible mobile application? So that's why this update to 2.1 was so crucial. Because in the web directive, it's mentioned that the Commission still had to publish the standard for mobile app accessibility. And it all had to come together. W3C was pushed to have this update ready so that Commission can update this. And what has happened in the last weeks is that the standardization organizations in Europe, there are 3 of them. There is CEN, there is CENELEC, and there is ETSI. They made a joint working group to execute a mandate from the European Commission to come up with this new standard. And nicely enough, and good for us that we can harmonize everything, W3C was ready in time with its 2.1 update, so that the main decision of this joint working group could be, okay, let's incorporate this 2.1 update into our European standard. Now, to be totally correct, it's not because the CEN, CENELEC, and ETSI have included the 2.1 in their standard. To be really correct, the Commission still has to agree with this proposal, let's call it, from the standardization bodies. Now, it's absolutely expected that they will, because they have no alternative anyway, as far as I know. So, and that should indeed happen in the next days, months, weeks, months, not many months anyway. And then we will have a harmonized European standard referencing version 2.1 of the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, which has to apply not only to websites, but also to electronic documents, to electronic newsletters, and mobile applications. So not so much, it's a long story, which is more political than technical. But the good news is really that we won't have a different standard in Europe than elsewhere in the world. We all will follow the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. and the 2.1 update was really needed to include details on app accessibility. By the time it also includes some improvements for partially sighted people. It goes a bit more into contrast, not only for text but also for images and labels on images. They were not included in the previous version. Also some new success criteria for better understanding of the content. So I think it's a very good, it's the best we could hope for 2 years ago.
So what does it mean? Does it mean basically that at some point when I find an inaccessible app which I want to be accessible, I can suggest the developer to look at the standard where it basically tells it how to make it more accessible?
He will find in the standard the principles.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, the standard is technology neutral. So he will find there that you will you have to have access to everything. Everything has to be labeled. There should be enough contrast. Now the techniques how to get this in his specific programming language, because for websites we can refer to HTML, but for apps we have to refer to programming languages.
And for specific platforms as well.
Yeah. So Android apps, I think, are mostly written in a program language like C#, and iPhone has its own development environment. So what the developer will still need is techniques how to apply the success criteria from the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. This is now already published for things like HTML, PDF, what we use since a long time. It will be up to the technology. It's very possible that Apple will, they have already very good documentation for their developers on accessibility. I think they will update it to make sure that they include all the guidance to fulfill the 2.1 new success criteria.
Well, in general, it's very, very good news, I think, because it makes it easier for us as a customer to ask developers to make their software more accessible, because we can refer to the standards, and obviously, make it also a national level thing, like pressure our governments and public sector to make the apps accessible, because at least...
So the web directive, what we refer to, applies to public sector bodies. So specifically for apps, there is a bit longer deadline, but in I think it's June 2021.
Yeah.
All government apps, so public sector body apps, will have to be accessible, existing ones and new ones. So I turn this around and I say to public sector, if your app will still exist in June 21, already start working on its accessibility now, because this deadline seems still far, but I hope that your app will last for 3 years. So if you have a new app now, already think about this accessibility, and you won't do it overnight, the 20th of June 2021. And the hope is that by having this law for public sector bodies, the hope is that these developers will also apply it to all the other apps that they make.
Yeah, exactly, because the developer gets the experience and might make it better, which is excellent. I have a personal experience on that, where I was in one of Estonia's banks talking about app accessibility, and and one of the developers there, I happened to follow him on Twitter, and then I saw at some point at 4 a.m. him tweet that getting into accessibility and reading the documentation is so exciting, and he has been playing with it, and I ended up personally testing the app, and he also personally made some app projects and made them accessible too. So I think it's very, very great.
Nice.
That more accessibility has been talked of, also on mobile.
Yeah. Speaking of this kind of experiences, I have to say that I had kind of the similar experience. While also I would be working with some developers. If you get enough attention to the developer to make its application accessible, if the first application becomes accessible for him, then you can be, I'm not going to say 100% sure, but we can be pretty much sure that the future products of this developer will take care of the accessibility most of the times, and that's really, really good to see.
Usually it's not bad will from developers, it's lack of knowledge or fear, and if we can overcome this, of course, they want their app to be used by as many people as possible. No one will be against. But the education has to follow also. As a developer, you should hear from accessibility in your studies. You shouldn't be able to graduate.
Oh, absolutely, yes. Especially if you're
web or
studying
app developer without having any knowledge about accessibility. So again, it's not bad will, but they have to be triggered somehow, and the earlier the better.
Exactly.
Yeah. Especially if you're studying like computer science or programming, I think that any kind of accessibility, whether it's web accessibility or the app accessibility courses, should be taught in the same time while the new developers are learning new languages and stuff like that. Okay, so that's about the news for the web directive and WCAG 2.1 implementation in Europe at the moment. We will try to invite some people for the next episodes from the Web Accessibility Initiative to talk about more about the Web Accessibility Directive and why is it important. Because as I said earlier, from the September 21st, it's going to be active in all the European Union for the public sector. So yeah, get ready for the next episodes next month. I hope we will have good news to share. Speaking of the news and the products, Bart, you got the chance to get your hands on something that's been circulating around for about a few years now, and that's kind of interesting watch as well, because in the last episode I reviewed the Acoustica watch, but this one is a completely Braille watch, and it's
a bit of the opposite.
Yeah, it's called a Dot Watch.
Dot Watch, exactly.
Yeah. Before you start, I had the chance of seeing one of the prototypes like last year on the Side City in Germany, which is like the biggest fair for the assistive technology currently in Europe. And
that's exactly where we saw it this year and where we got our demo model from.
Okay. Yeah. I have to say I was by the project, the idea by itself is really good. I like the idea that somebody came out with the idea that they want to develop a Braille watch. But okay, we can share our opinions later. Maybe you can go first because you got the unit for a few months now, and you can say what do you think and how does it look. So maybe we can later go on with some short opinions and expressions.
Sure. I'm personally a Braille watch user, still the old type, and I like it because it's non-obtrusive. If you check the time with a talking watch, everybody around you can hear it. The Braille watch is much more private. So this is a totally new way of approaching Braille watch. It's even literally a Braille watch. It has 4 Braille cells across the round. It's still a round shape, like we know watches for a long time. But in the middle you have 4 cells with Braille, 6 dots Braille, and they have. It's a Korean product. And first of all, I want to say that we were very impressed by the design, also already of the box in which the product comes. There is Braille on the box. There is a manual in Braille included in the package. It fits very nicely in the box. There is even some tactile images in the manual to indicate with a little arrow what button they are talking about at this point in the manual. So really 5 stars for the way they, for the package and for the getting started. So it's not only Braille on the watch, but also Braille everywhere on the box and inside. So very nicely to unpack this product. The 4 Braille cells, of course, they show the time, obvious as a watch. It can even do seconds, so you can see the seconds go by. It has alarms. It has what you expect, the date, and technically you can also link it to your smartphone and read incoming calls or incoming messages on your watch. Of course, 4 cells at a time. It's not. It takes a while to read through, but technically you can if you wish so. Just one remark I had is that the technology they developed on getting the dots up and down, like we need for refreshable Braille, you are supposed to take off your fingers after having read, because when the dots jump up and you keep your finger on the cell, it interferes. So for me, that's a big problem. So I told you can check the seconds, but you should lift your finger every time.
That's what I wanted to ask. Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask. So it's still accurate. This thing
feels very unnatural to do. Normally your fingers would rest on a Braille display, especially it's such a small one where you don't need to slide from left, right, etc. So in the beginning, I thought there was a technical problem because some dots were not coming up and others were. And then we read further in the manual and they said that you're supposed to lift your fingers to get the new content properly displayed. And that felt very unnatural for me. That's the only remark I would have on this design.
How durable do you think it is? Like, because when you wear a watch, I like my experience with Braille displays, and I have had a few, is that the cells usually are a bit fragile. Like they don't want any debris in them, and definitely not water. But if you have a watch on your wrist, you know you might get some water when you wash your hands and stuff.
I see your point. Now with this Braille cells, there are no holes, so there are not literally pins coming out from little holes where indeed dust or something could get in. So that's indeed a technique. It's I don't know the chemistry behind it, but it's something under, and it's like swells, but there is no nothing can physically enter.
Oh, I see.
So that's a
clever
thing.
way to do that.
It's right. But another Braille watch would also not be to go swimming with. So I guess it's similar to the traditional Braille watch that you would open the cover.
I haven't seen it, and I was mostly worried about dust and things getting in, because when you wash your hands, it obviously gets a bit wet and all that. I am personally myself, I'm personally as well a Braille watch person. I have Apple Watch as well, which I occasionally use because I like its health and step tracking and all that things. But it talks, and I kind of don't like talking watches in public. Apple Watch has a function where it can vibrate you the time, so it taps on your wrists in different ways and tells you the time.
Is it by this Time Buzz application?
No, it has a built-in feature.
Okay.
But it's slow for me, so I'm using an analog watch as well, which is accessible, and I prefer that because I put my finger on there and I know immediately what time is it, and yeah, I'm also like into the silent watch department.
As I can see, they didn't make any kind of glass cover or whatever against the dust, because
they didn't. No.
Yeah.
It's open.
Yeah. So, kind of general advice is that maybe people who would want to purchase the watch would have to be a little bit more careful than.
Does it display the time all the time, or do you have to press the button for the cells to like come up?
That's a very good question. I think you have to push a button.
Oh, okay. Because I was wondering, like, can you just put your finger on your wrist and know, or do you have to press a button and then probably for battery
you have to
life
press a
they
button
don't.
Because
although
small, but it makes a sound when the dots change. So if it would jump all the time, I think
it would.
Some people might like the clocks ticking, but I would become very crazy. So no, we have to. Now I'm pretty sure you have to press the button.
Okay.
But if I remember correctly, the watch has like one button which selects different modes. So basically, in one mode you can check the time. In the other mode, you can check the messages and stuff like that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
There
So
are
I remember.
few buttons. I think there are 3 buttons around.
And I think there are like, because it's 4 cells watch. There are, if I remember, it's like on each side of the watch there is like small pen button which scrolls the display forward and backwards.
Yeah, like what you would have the thumb keys on a Braille display. Yeah. You have them under the cells. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So the next thing we need is a Braille wristband. So the Braille screen with wrap around your wrist, so you get more cells
across your wrist. Okay.
Yeah. You get more cells.
The roll-up Braille display. There are people.
Well, exactly, because everybody talks about, like in the visual world, they talk about, oh yeah, we're gonna have a bending screen soon. So let's be first here. Let's make a roll-up Braille displays.
Yeah, come on. Even there is this competition now from Microsoft where you can try to get $25 million for developing the best accessible solution. Actually, we can include that in the show notes. And we briefly touched that like in the previous.
It was last time. It was about artificial intelligence applications.
But now they kind of expand this thing. I will dig through the emails and find it out. But yes, so maybe there is somebody who thinks that it's smart enough. So if you think that 25 million is enough to develop such a thing, go ahead. So for this time, we send warm regards to Birkir, who might join us soon, because he survived the storm. He was rider on the storm. He might be with us soon with some news from Amazon and from Alexa. So we will hear about from Birkir, I hope, soon. And if you want to check us out, check out our previous episodes and listen what we had to say. You can check it out on our Twitter page or through the European Blind Union website, or you can also send us an email on our mail address, which is also published in the show notes. So that's it for this time, guys. I thank you very much for being patient with us. We might come up very soon, finally, on the iTunes. And when we do, we will make the public announcement and make the tweets about it, so everybody can use whatever devices you have, even Google Home, to listen through the iTunes. And I'm sure that people will like that very much, because right now you have to get to our page and be a little bit more techy to listen to us. So getting us on iTunes would be very good. Okay, guys, thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Take care and see you next time.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. This has been EBU Access Cast.